This week we are reviewing one of the most planted wine varietals in the world, yet it's hardly ever mentioned by name. And in this week's tip of the week, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of bringing your own bottle of wine to a restaurant. All of that coming up next. Hello and welcome to Wine This Week with Scott Leek. I am pumped to talk about Grenache this week because this is a wine I've been on a kick for many years, and I am not slowing down with my enjoyment of it. You might know it as Garnacha in Spain, or in Italy as Cannonau. And there's a little debate as to whether or not it originated in Italy or whether it originated in Spain. Either way, you can find it in both places. It's really common in southern France. This is a blending grape in southern Rhone, and sometimes you'll find it as a standalone varietal, but you might not see its name on the label because maybe it's made into a rosé, which is very common in places like Tavel, the Languedoc, or Minervois. It's certainly popular in Australia. There's some very old vines planted in McLaren Vale and Barossa Valley, and you might know it in all parts of southern Australia as a blend there as well. Sometimes it's just labeled GSM, which stands for Grenache, Syrah, and Waived, the same three wines varietals that are blended in the southern Rhone. And you might see it in the United States as a standalone varietal of Grenache, but you might see it as a blend here as well in California or in Washington, where sometimes it goes by the name Rhone Blend. So either way, this is a very common grape. We just don't often see it as a standalone varietal, but you are able to find it, and I encourage you to try one. We'll go over this one today. This one is from Spain, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about it. We will also do a future episode just on the Rhone blends, the GSMs, because that is such an important style of wine and so common that it's worth its own episode as well. Today's wine is the 2018 Garnacha made by Borsao. This is a really prolific wine family in Spain. They have 6,000 acres of Grenache planted. That's about 1/7 of the size of Napa Valley that is just owned by this one bodega. So they know what they're doing, and they make a higher level than this one called Tres Picos that costs around like $18. I recommended that in my Thanksgiving newsletter a couple years ago, for those of you who are familiar with that. This was $9.99, so I'm really excited to see if we can get a good single varietal Grenache for under $10. So let's give it a try. And again, nothing wrong with the screw cap. Embrace the screw cap, people. Oh, I can tell already that's a great color on this. Oh, wow. Look at that. It's like liquid candy in there. So Grenache is a fairly thin-skinned grape and doesn't have a whole lot of tannin to it. So this is fairly light in color. I mean, for a red wine, I'm going to put this as kind of a medium garnet color. On the nose, that's nice. Oh, this is just awesome. So there's oftentimes Grenache and the GSM blends are going to have some oak to it. So I do get a little oak right away, but really bright red fruits, and that's incredibly common with Grenache. This is not your blackberry cassis style wine. This is more red fruit, so I'm getting a lot of dark cherry, a little bit of raspberry as well, and then there's some really nice spices in here. So maybe some allspice. And yeah, the vanilla from the oak is coming through as well. Maybe a little clove. Awesome smell. Love this wine so far. Let's give it a taste. So one of the first things I'm noticing, it's got some nice acidity, but it's not too high. Pretty medium acidity on this. And these are not very acidic wines to begin with. They're kind of low in acidity and low in tannin overall compared to most reds. It's a little off dry. There's some sweetness to it, which is really nice. I mean, it's not sugary. It's just it's the sweetness of the fruit that's coming through. And Grenache tends to do very well in moderate and hot climates. All those places that I mentioned where we find this tend to be pretty hot climates for the most part. And so the grape gets very concentrated and there's a lot of sugar in it. So they tend to produce a lot of alcohol as well. You have a lot of sugar, there's a lot of fermentation, you get a lot of alcohol. And sometimes not all the sugar gets fully consumed in the fermentation process. So you get a little sweetness, but there's so much fruit here that there's that perceived sweetness from the fruit as well. Trying to find the alcohol in this because it doesn't feel all that high. 14.5, man, that's impressive to not feel a ton of heat for a 14.5% wine, but not uncommon to find a Grenache 14.5, 15.5% alcohol. But this is nice. The alcohol is pretty balanced with the fruit. I'm impressed by that. The tannin levels are good too. It's medium. I get a little bit, not so much on my jaw where I've been getting it along the wines lately. This is more I notice on my tongue. A little bit of that sandpaper feeling when I move my tongue against the roof of my mouth. So enjoying the kind of moderate tannin levels. There's a great juiciness, and that's pretty common in my mind with Grenache, is there's this juiciness that you feel from the acidity, and it just makes you want to just keep drinking it. It's so awesome. I really love this. On the actual palate, all right, now I'm getting a little bit more of the tannins in my cheeks as well, but it's still very soft, fine tannin. It's great. The intensity of the flavors is really nice too. It's not bowling me over, but it's really pleasant. I'm going to call it medium plus on the intensity of the flavors. So the cherry's certainly there. I am getting a little oak and the allspice kind of clove flavors. I'm going to put a little more in here just because why not? I'm going to have more of this tonight if you couldn't tell. There is some floral on the nose too that I'm getting now. I'd say this is probably more violet. There's definitely some raspberry. It's fairly well balanced. Again, it's a little lower in acidity and tannin, which unfortunately makes Grenache not all that age-worthy. This is a 2018, and it's perfectly fine to be drinking this already at 2.5, 3 years old. That's part of the reason why you see it blended so often with Syrah or Mourvedre, because that can help kind of boost those tannin and acid levels. That's going to help make it a little bit more age-worthy. But this is a great wine to drink young. And again, man, I'm loving the acidity on this and the juiciness feeling. It just, yeah, I'm thinking back to those old commercials for juicy fruit gum. If any of you are as old as me and can remember those, and just the kind of the visuals of the explosion of fruit. And that's kind of what this is reminding me of. This is just, juicy is the word that keeps coming to mind for this. There's a little bit of tobacco as well. There's something else I couldn't quite put my finger on. And I think it's just a little bit of tobacco. I'm not getting kind of earth or forest floor. That can be common with some Grenaches as well. I'm not getting that in this case. For a $10 one, I'm not surprised that this doesn't have the complexity of some of those tertiary notes that you might get there. But being this young, that's not too surprising. So balance is good. I like the balance of the kind of medium acid and medium tannins. It's a medium bodied wine as well. The juiciness is there to kind of make it feel a little thinner than it is. The alcohol makes it feel a little fuller. So good middle of the road on the body. Yeah, get some good points for the balance. The intensity is nice. It's not overpowering. Good intensity. There's a number of different things I'm detecting too. So there's some complexity, but not like the Bordeaux that I had a couple months ago. And then the finish is nice. This is a good finish, and the tobacco and the spice notes are a little bit more pronounced as the finish goes on as opposed to the fruit. Not a bad thing, just noting it. So all in, I'm going to call this 7.5 points on my 10-point scale. This is really good, and at less than $10, I think this is a steal. I'm digging this wine, and because of kind of those spice characteristics and the fruit and the acid level, I think this is going to go well with a lot of meats that maybe are, got some herbs all over them, like a chimichurri sauce. You know what? What would be great with this would be like street tacos with a chimichurri. Yeah, maybe some nice street tacos would be really good. It's a nice carne asada or carnitas with some chimichurri. There you go. That's my pairing recommendation for this. So branch out, seek out a standalone Grenache, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Once in a while, it's okay to bring your own bottle of wine to a restaurant for a special occasion. And if it's a special occasion, it should be a special bottle. You're not trying to circumvent the system and avoid the markup on the wines. You're not bringing $10 bottles like the Garnacha we had here today. If you're bringing a bottle, it should be a special bottle. Don't use this as an excuse to save a little money, because you buy this $10 bottle, you bring it in, and you pay a $30 corking fee. You're probably better off just buying a $40 bottle of wine at the restaurant anyway. So if you're going to do it, have it be a special bottle of wine. Chances are this is a restaurant you like and appreciate. You need them to stay in business. Their liquor is the best way that they have to break even or make a little profit. Let's support our restaurants, and let's not try to circumvent the system with bringing in cheap bottles and paying the corking fee. But if you have a special bottle like this one here, this is a 2002, the year I was married. That's the type of bottle of wine that I'm going to bring to a restaurant to celebrate my anniversary. Now, when I do, I'm checking the website ahead of time to make sure that they don't have this exact same bottle there. If they do, I'm either leaving that at home, picking a different bottle, or picking a different restaurant that doesn't have it on the menu. But don't bring a bottle that they already have. The next thing is expect to pay a corking fee. And they range for as little as $5 to $10 all the way up to $35, and I've seen $50 at one place. $20, $25 is probably about the average for a corking fee. And the corking fee is justified. Number one, I mean, let's be honest, they're trying to minimize the number of people that are bringing in a bottle because it is cutting into their profits. But the other thing is, there is still service to be had and provided when you bring in your own bottle. They've got to provide you wine glasses. They've got to serve you the wine, open it, possibly decant it. They've got to clean the glasses. There's plenty associated with it that the corking fee is justified. So if you don't like paying the corking fee, then don't bring your bottle. There are a few things you can maybe do in the course of your evening to avoid the corking fee or improve your odds of having it waived. And I've had this happen a couple of times. Number one, if you're bringing a special bottle, offer to pour a little bit for your server. So if it's 4 of you at the table, ask for a 5th glass, pour your server 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces, and say, this is a really special wine. I'd like for you to try it too if you can. And they'll often take it in the back and have a sip of it, maybe share it with the chef. You do something like that, you got a good chance of having your corking fee waived. Don't expect it, don't be upset if you don't, but it's something you can do to enhance your odds. And I'll tell you what, you're gonna get good service from here on out if you offer to do that as well. The other thing you can try to do too is make sure you order something else from the restaurant. So typically if I'm bringing a bottle like this and there's 4 people at the table, I will order a bottle of champagne or something for a first course and then have this with the second course. So buying a bottle of wine from the restaurant sometimes can get you the corking fee waived. Some policies might state that outright, that if you buy a bottle from them, they'll waive the corking fee. So those are a couple things you can do to reduce the odds of getting that corking fee waived. But again, if you get it, pay it with gratitude and appreciate the opportunity to bring a special bottle of wine to one of your favorite restaurants. Make sure that when it comes time to leave your tip, that you tip on the value of your bottle of wine, what it would have been had you bought it from them. So let's say you're bringing this bottle and it's worth $100. That restaurant might have charged you $200 for it. Add that to your bill mentally and tip accordingly. So those are the best things to do in terms of do's, don'ts, and etiquette for bringing your own bottle of wine to a restaurant. One last kind of bonus tip I'll recommend, and that is to get a neoprene wine carry tote like this. Bring in a nice bottle of wine in a brown bag, not a good look. You're not a hobo. Invest $10, $20 in a neoprene carry bag. The other thing it's going to do for you is help keep it at cellar temperature, or if it's a white wine or a sparkling wine, keep that thing cold on the way to the restaurant. Make sure your hands aren't warming it up as you're carrying it and transporting it. So hopefully those tips help you the next time you think about bringing your own bottle of wine to a restaurant. Thank you for watching Wine This Week. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe. Join me next week as we move on to Austria, not Australia, Austria, where we have the white wine varietal Grüner Veltliner. Until then, keep trying new wines, and as always, cheers.